The sand was coarse and hot, even in the dying light. Twin suns dropped slowly beneath the red horizon, casting long shadows over the broken wreckage of a human recon skimmer. Smoke curled up in lazy coils from its ruptured hull, mingling with the metallic scent of blood and scorched electronics. Nearby, two bodies lay still. May Ransom blinked dust from her lashes, her right eye swelling shut, her left arm barely responding. Blood, some of it hers, some not, ran down her temple in slow, tacky rivulets. She tasted copper when she breathed. Not pain yet, just pressure, numbness, the cold inevitability of dying far from home. Beside her, Liddy whimpered. The girl's breath was shallow, her freckled face half buried in the sand. 13, maybe 14, if you counted her half-birthday she'd made such a fuss about. Her glasses were gone, and her old Game Boy was clutched against her chest like a holy relic, cracked screen blinking static. May shifted, choking on a grunt. Her bionic arm was damaged, shoulder dislocated or worse, and there was something wet pooling in her lower back. She reached for her daughter anyway. One finger touched Liddy's wrist. A pulse. Weak, but there. Relief, sharp and blinding, cut through her better than morphine ever had. The hiss of a landing pod drew her attention upward. She turned her head with slow defiance, grit grinding against torn cheek. The Empire's insignia gleamed gold and black on the descending craft, sleek, bloodless, arrogant. Just like them. Zar Thun stepped out of the drop, hatch like he was taking a stroll in his garden. 8 feet tall, armored in a ceremonial cuirass of shimmering obsidian, with that same damn ceremonial blade dragging a shallow line in the sand behind him. His reptilian snout curled in what passed for a smile. "I was told you were a strategist," he said in that glacially smug voice, "but you brought a child to war. Curious. Is this what passes for command among your kind?" May spat blood. "She built half the tech you tripped over on your way in, lizard. She's smarter than every one of your tactical engineers, if you can call morons with shiny helmets engineers." He tilted his head, amused. Still defiant. Even bleeding in sand. "I've bled and worse. Not for long." Zar raised his blade, clearly savoring the moment. Around him, the Empire's foot soldiers, glittering things with blank visors and very expensive guns, watched with bored efficiency. To them, this wasn't war. This was cleanup. May's hand curled slightly tighter around a pebble in the dust. Not a weapon. Just something. Something to hold. Something to remember what it felt like to try. "You killed a diplomat's daughter last week," she said through cracked lips. "Broke a treaty signed in front of 12 species. A minor offense. She was trespassing. She was 12. Zar's smile didn't change. "Then perhaps we have a pattern." He turned. "Ensure they're dead. We leave in 2 minutes. There's a gala." The soldiers moved forward. May's gaze drifted to Liddy. The girl's eyes fluttered, then closed again. She whispered something, barely audible. 40 seconds, May muttered. "Give me 40. The first soldier raised his weapon. A sound sliced through the air, high-pitched, mechanical, and rising fast. Then another, and another. Not weapons. Not aircraft. Whistles. The Empire troops froze, confused. They turned just in time to see the sky crack open. 3 dark shapes screamed through the upper atmosphere, trailing sonic ripples, and aurora burst behind them. May smiled grimly as a jagged contrail etched a line across the sky. The cavalry, if you could call them that, were ahead of schedule. Liddy's flare must have gotten through. The lead dropship, more scrap metal than starship, plummeted toward the battlefield with gleeful disregard for physics. It landed in a detonation of sand and force, knocking over 2 troopers with a blast wave alone. The second ship skidded, cartwheeled, and came to a rest half on top of a fallen drone. The third didn't land so much as explode into the terrain with reckless intent. Zar turned sharply. "What in the stars is this?" A hatch on the first ship burst open. Smoke poured out, and through it stepped Boomer DeSoto, a human with wild eyes, a beard like tangled yarn, and an RPG launcher on his back painted like a surfboard. He chewed a cigar with menace, grinned at the stunned soldiers, and shouted, "Well, hey there, you shiny sons of squids. Then the shooting started. May rolled toward her daughter, shielding her as plasma bursts lit the night. The air trembled. Someone yelled about a cow, and someone else screamed, "You brought a toaster to a laser fight." She heard Liddy groan softly, still alive, still in this, and suddenly the pain meant nothing. She sat up slowly, letting the chaos happen behind her. A shadow fell over her, and she looked up into the face of Val Reyes, former Imperial medic turned mercenary savior. She wore scavenged armor and a scowl sharp enough to cut alloy. "You look like crap," Val said, kneeling. "You're late," May replied. "I brought backup." "I see that. Anyone sober?" "Statistically? No." May's lips twitched. "Good." Behind them, LaQuinta Jones, gun slung over one shoulder, was charging into battle with a frying pan and a bottle of tequila. She screamed for Earth snack rights as she cracked a trooper in the jaw. A flash of green light seared the sand near May's head. Val cursed, returning fire. "We need to move. I can stabilize the kid once we're clear." "Not yet," May growled. "Where's Yuri?" "Up there." May followed the line of Val's finger. A distant glint on the ridge. Then, quietly, the side of an Imperial tank exploded. "Right on cue," May whispered. More ships rumbled overhead. The battlefield transformed minute by minute, from clean, clinical occupation into beautiful, chaotic rebellion. The human army, such as it was, looked like a collection of side characters from every Earth apocalypse movie rolled into one. But they were winning, somehow. Because the Empire didn't understand rage, or loyalty, or that humans trained on stories where one wounded warrior and a weird kid could topple kingdoms. Tsar bellowed commands. He stepped into the firefight himself, slicing a merc in half with that ceremonial blade, his scaled skin catching moonlight. He locked eyes with May through the smoke. She smiled with her teeth, then slowly stood. The soldiers around him hesitated. Because May Ransom, broken arm hanging, blood staining the Earth badge on her torn fatigues, was walking straight toward him, unarmed, laughing. "You left me bleeding," she said. "Big mistake. You're still bleeding. Not for long." A battle droid leapt between them, towering and brutal. May didn't flinch. Behind her, a small sphere bounced through the sand. Boomer yelled, "Hershey kiss inbound." The droid turned just as the grenade went off, shredding half the line. May didn't stop. She was a storm in boots now. Tsar charged. They collided in a clash of speed and fury, her bionic hand meeting his blade with a shriek of metal. The shockwave knocked Val back. Troopers turned. Liddy opened her eyes. Mom." May heard her, and something inside her surged, beyond pain, beyond fatigue, beyond fear. She ducked under Zara's second swing, drove her knee into his midsection, and ripped the blade from his grip with her damaged arm screaming in protest. He snarled, claws flashing, but she was faster, dropped, rolled, and came up behind him with the blade now in her hand. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't clean. But when May Ransom drove that stolen blade through his second heart, it was very, very personal. Tsar gasped. "You are nothing." "No," she said. "I'm a mother." She twisted. He collapsed. The battlefield slowed. Alien soldiers froze. Human fighters howled. Above them, in that endless alien sky, someone broadcast the footage live. In every corner of the galaxy, beings watched the moment the Empire's symbol of terror bled out in the dirt, and the human general just stood over him, broken but unbent. Val ran to her, dragging med supplies. "You suicidal maniac." May swayed. "Don't flatter me. You're gonna pass out." "Not yet." "Why?" "Because Liddy needs waffles." Val stared. "What?" "Promise me waffles. Then I'll rest." Val looked at the girl and back at May. "Okay, waffles. Extra syrup." May let herself fall sideways into the sand, grinning as the stars flickered overhead. 40 seconds. That's all she'd asked for. And look what crawled out of the sky. Tomorrow could bring another war. But tonight they'd won. Boomer DeSoto chewed on the same soggy cigar he'd had tucked behind his ear since the war on Europa 9 and kicked open the bulkhead of the crash-landed dropship with theatrical flair. Dust and static sizzled around his boots. The desert wind whipped his tattered flag cape, a stitched-together mess of Earth nations, and a faded AC/DC logo, as he planted both feet into the alien sand and bellowed into the din of chaos. "Honey, I'm home." No one responded, because half the enemy forces were already ducking for cover. Behind him stumbled 3 half-operational battlebots, all stolen, all taped back together with human ingenuity and bad decisions. They responded only to Boomer's voice and 1997 Windows boot-up tones. One beeped ominously and released a puff of steam that smelled like burnt nachos. To his right, Yuri stepped lightly from the shadows, his long sniper rifle slung across his shoulder like an old violin. He didn't speak. He never did. But his shirt read, "In Soviet Russia, war fights you." He raised a single brow and pointed toward the ridge, where Empire tanks had begun to line up, sleek and shining and far too confident. Boomer nodded, slapped a detonator onto his vest with a magnetic clunk, and muttered, "Guess it's time to ruin someone's perfect day." Below the ridge, May sat with Liddy behind makeshift cover, twisted metal and scorched sand forming a crude shelter. Val hovered nearby, injecting Liddy with a stim shot that would keep her conscious just long enough. The girl winced but grinned. "Still got your Game Boy?" May asked. Liddy held it up, cracked screen flickering between Tetris blocks, and some kind of battle interface she'd rigged. "Kevin says hi. And also, he's hacking their comms." "Good boy," May muttered, checking her sidearm, a battered old Terra Mark 8. She had 3 rounds and 1 good shoulder. It would have to do. Val stood. "I've got about 5 minutes of chaos left in me. After that, I start getting philosophical." May smirked. "Just keep us alive till then." In the distance, LaQuinta Jones descended from the 3rd dropship in a plume of smoke and glitter, her long coat swirling around her like a cape made of outlaw legends. Her hair was tied in a single braid that reached her waist, tipped with a bullet casing. She carried 2 hand cannons and a flask of something that could melt titanium. She grinned as she strolled past stunned troopers. "Evenin', gentlemen," she purred. "Don't suppose y'all know where I can find a good Empire to dismantle?" A plasma bolt zipped past her. Without looking, she shot back, hit a targeting drone mid-flight, and kept walking. Didn't think so. Empire troops, regrouping under the command of Lieutenant Craxel, 2nd Czar, now 1st by default, scrambled to form firing lines. Craxel barked orders in his native trill click-hiss, calling for orbital reinforcements and high-altitude suppression. But all his requests came back with a single, garbled phrase playing over Empire comms. "Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down." Liddy giggled from her rocks. "Told you Kevin had taste." Craxel slammed his communicator shut and roared, "End them." Now, from the far ridge, a rusted food truck crested the hill, honking aggressively. Painted across its side were the words "Taco," "Bout Vengeance" in flaking red. A single tattered flag waved behind it, a crudely drawn Earth with sunglasses. Boomer laughed out loud. My boys brought the party. The food truck accelerated, flames spitting from its tailpipe. As it barreled forward, makeshift launchers on its roof activated, launching deep-fried explosive empanadas into the enemy ranks. One struck a mech's leg, causing a catastrophic systems failure that sent it toppling backward into its own soldiers. May watched, stunned. "Are those actual tacos?" Val blinked. "I think they're weaponized with ghost pepper sauce." "Of course they are." Craxel screeched and lunged forward, leading a charge. The Empire soldiers followed, glowing blades and energy rifles, lighting the dusk in streaks of death. But the humans didn't break. They pressed forward. Yuri fired from the ridge. One shot, one fall. Another. A third. Troopers began to scatter, the eerie silence of his kills more terrifying than any scream. Boomer flanked left, igniting charges planted earlier. The desert floor erupted, swallowing whole ranks in clouds of sand and despair. His laughter crackled over open comms. "Y'all forgot the first rule of fighting humans. Don't." LaQuinta vaulted over a wrecked mech, somersaulted in midair, and landed beside May, twin pistol spinning. "Did you miss me?" "Always," May said. "You bring Susan?" LaQuinta reached into her jacket and pulled out a pet rock painted like a mini nuclear warhead. She's armed. May nodded. Then we're in business. The battle turned. With each passing minute, the Empire faltered. Their tech, too precise, too brittle, began to fail under the grit and unpredictability of Earth-bred madness. Plasma rifles jammed when overcharged. Shields cracked under sustained assault from modified jackhammers. Mechs shorted out when pelted with glitter bombs soaked in salt water. But the humans kept coming. Val dragged Liddy to a safer spot, shielding her with a deflector dish stolen from a satellite. Liddy, dizzy but conscious, typed rapidly into her Game Boy. "Uploading final loop," she muttered. "What kind of loop?" Val asked. "Cultural overload. Every Empire broadcast tower will switch to Earth history in 3, 2. Suddenly, every hologram, every ship interface, every troopervisor lit up with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Then Baywatch. Then Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. Craxel screamed, clutching his head. Why are they running on sand in slow motion? Empire soldiers stumbled in confusion, momentarily hypnotized by the bouncing humans on screen. It was long enough. May stood atop a wrecked walker, raised her weapon, and shouted, "This is what you get for shooting me in front of my kid." Boomer triggered a new charge. The taco truck exploded in a final blaze of cheese-fuel glory. The shockwave rippled across the sand. Several Empire units dropped their weapons and ran. Craxel, now missing a portion of his arm and half his composure, locked eyes with May. "You think this is a victory?" he spat. "You think this rabble, this pack of snack-addicted lunatics, can stop the Empire?" May descended slowly from the walker, each step deliberate. "We're not trying to stop you," she said. "We're trying to remind you." "Of what?" "That Earth never starts the war. But we sure as hell finish it." She fired once. The blast tore through his chest. Craxel crumpled without ceremony. The field fell silent. Smoke drifted. Fires smoldered in half-moons along the valley edge. Human fighters, many limping, some bleeding, all grinning, gathered near the wreckage of what had been the pride of the Empire's forward force. May knelt beside Liddy, brushing sweat-stiff hair from her brow. "You okay, kid?" Liddy blinked. "Yeah, just tired. And maybe hungry. Kevin says we're low on batteries." May looked up at Val. "Find her food and a charger." Val nodded, exhausted but smiling. "Already on it." Boomer sauntered over, holding a half-melted helmet. "They don't make enemies like they used to." May raised an eyebrow. "They tried. We just made sure they regretted it." LaQuinta joined them, dropping a still-smoking plasma blade onto the sand. "What's next?" May stood slowly, taking in the stars overhead, some of them battle-scarred now, others blinking with unknown intentions. "We made noise," she said. "That means others heard us. This doesn't end here." Boomer cracked his knuckles. "Got another war planned?" "No, but I've got a message." She looked into the nearest broadcast drone, now reconnected to Galactic networks. "This is General May Ransom of Earth. You left me and my daughter bleeding in the sand. You thought that would be the end. But we don't die quiet. We don't die easy. And if you ever come near our kids again." She held up the Empire's shattered emblem, dropped it, and ground it into dust beneath her boot. "You better bring more than an Empire." The signal ended. Across the stars, those watching began to whisper. And somewhere beyond, in a cold hall of mirrors and steel, a council of alien lords stared at a paused screen showing May Ransom bloodied and burning, but smiling. "She'll come for us," one of them murmured. Another answered, "She already is." May sat back down beside Liddy, took the girl's hand in hers, and exhaled. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow we remind them who we are." The sky was dark now, but the fire in the valley still burned. One shaky drone caught in the chaos had hovered just long enough to capture the final moments. General May Ransom, armor torn, face smeared with blood and grit, lifting her boot and grinding the golden emblem of the Galactic Empire into powder. No speechwriters, no ceremony, just that image, raw, human, defiant. Within minutes, it was everywhere. On trade hubs in the outer rings, rebels paused black market deals to watch it loop again and again. In the icy chambers of planetary viceroys, the clip played silently, while diplomats whispered to each other in anxious dialects. On the desert moon of Kelzer Prime, street vendors sold hot kebabs shaped like empire helmets being stepped on. Children on mining stations threw mock war games in zero-gravity chanting. Fear the mother, fear the meme. May didn't know any of this yet. She sat by the campfire, its flickering heat licking at her boots. Beside her, Liddy was asleep, finally, curled under an emergency blanket and holding her Game Boy like a prayer stone. Kevin had been reduced to a single blinking green light and one muffled squawk every time he tried to say battery low. May gently silenced the device and tucked it beside her daughter's hand. Val crouched across from her, roasting something unidentifiable on a stick. It smelled like burnt hope, or maybe toasted optimism. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Val asked, tone low but edged with amusement. May raised a brow. "Survived. You started a movement." "I didn't start anything. I just didn't finish when they told me to." Boomer dropped into the circle, cracking open a can of something fizzy and suspicious. "Pretty sure I just saw a meme of you stomping on Zar's corpse while laser cats danced in the background." Caption said, "When Mom says no more empire at the dinner table." May rubbed her temple. "That's not even funny. It is to 3 billion viewers across 6 sectors." Yuri slid in silently, dropping a small hologram device onto the ground. He pressed a button. Holographic projections flared up. Thousands of images, variations of the same theme. May standing over the emblem. May glaring into the camera. May clutching her daughter, bloodied and upright, with captions like Earth's final warning, bionic mommy issues, and PDA meeting, Galactic edition. She stared. "What the hell is all this?" "Propaganda," LaQuinta said, sauntering in with a stolen imperial coat draped over her shoulder. "But the kind we never get. The kind that works. These people, hell, even the Empire's civilians, they're watching. They're scared. Or inspired. Or both." May exhaled. She wasn't sure if that was comforting or deeply disturbing. "Great," she muttered. "Now I'm a meme." LaQuinta grinned. "You're the meme." A shadow passed overhead. Everyone froze. Boomer stood, hand on his launcher. Val covered Liddy. May rose slowly, watching the clouds ripple. The craft wasn't Empire. It was too round, too patchwork. Then it beeped and descended like an old Earth school bus that had been forced into military service. As it landed with a low hydraulic sigh, the side doors hissed open and a squat, orange-shelled alien rolled down the ramp on tank treads. It wore a badly stitched vest that read, "I peace hard," and carried a bouquet of what might have been edible moss. "I come and snack," it said brightly. Val narrowed her eyes. "Peace. Snack." The alien pointed at May. "You are her?" May blinked. "Depends. Who's asking?" "I am Glorvax, son of Glorvax, third-born of the moss planetoid of Jork. We saw you stomp and yell. It was very moving." Boomer leaned over to May. "I think you've got fan mail." Glorvax pushed a glowing cube forward. "My people wish to ally with yours. In exchange, we offer a cultural trade. You give us more memes and possibly television." May stared. "You want TV?" "Yes. Especially the small boy left alone during winter season who creates dangerous traps and survives burglars. That one speaks to our ancestral values." Liddy stirred in her sleep and mumbled, "Kevin McAllister is a galactic icon." May took the cube, mostly to stop the conversation from getting stranger. "All right, Glorvax. Tell your people we'll talk later." The orange creature saluted awkwardly, bowed to Liddy, and rolled back into its shuttle. Boomer grinned. "You're starting a fan club." May wasn't smiling. "They're watching. That means the Empire's watching too." LaQuinta's expression sobered. "You're right. That's not a good thing." Back in orbit, aboard what remained of the Empire's forward command ship, the tone was anything but celebratory. Dread Admiral P.H. Larks, clad in velvet black armor lined with threads harvested from wormholes, paced the bridge with icy precision. The broadcast of May's speech had been replaying on every terminal, mocking them with its simplicity. "Turn it off," he said. The crew hesitated. "But, sir, we tried. It keeps bypassing all overrides. It's embedded in the system root. It's part of the operating visuals now." P.H. Larks hissed and smashed the nearest terminal with his clawed hand. "Rebuild everything," he snapped. "Recalibrate the fleet. I want her location. Now." A younger officer stepped forward, careful. "Sir, she's on a desert moon surrounded by scavengers and walking scrap metal. She's not a threat to the Empire." P.H. Larks turned slowly. "She's the only threat," he said. "She proved we can bleed. And that humans, those unpredictable pop song singing degenerates, can do it with wit and emotion and absolutely no sense of protocol." "Sir, permission to speak freely?" "Denied." The officer nodded, wisely silent. P.H. Larks turned to the comms terminal. "Activate Project Obsidian Rain." A beat passed. Another officer looked up, eyes wide. "That'll burn out the atmosphere. It's against Imperial code." P.H. Larks's voice was calm, then changed the code. Back on the surface, May felt the change before she saw it. The sky shifted, too quiet, too fast. Clouds parted like paper being torn. Static tingled across her skin. She looked up. The stars weren't blinking anymore. They were forming into lines. Perfect, unnatural lines. Val stood beside her. "That's not a weather pattern." May nodded grimly. "They're coming. Not for war. For erasure." Boomer swore. LaQuinta unslung her rifle. Yuri loaded a fresh round. Liddy opened one eye and whispered, "We're being painted." May turned to them all. "We've got less than an hour before they drop the sky on us." "And then what?" Boomer asked. "Then we give them one last thing to remember." Her voice didn't waver, but deep inside, something tightened. "Because memes might travel faster than light. But vengeance, if you were lucky, could keep pace." The warning sirens began as whispers in the wind. A low, metallic hum swept across the desert like breath before the roar. Dust lifted from the ground in concentric pulses. The air turned electric, charged with something old and terrible. Above them, the sky unraveled, its calm shattered by the descent of the Empire's judgment. May Ransom stood still in the center of the sand-blasted plain, watching the atmosphere burn. "It's obsidian rain," Val said, her voice low and tight with awe and dread. "I've only seen it once. On Halcyon 5. It turned oceans into vapor in 5 minutes." Boomer spat in the dirt. "So Umbrella won't help?" "No," May murmured. "But maybe insanity will." The black lines in the sky thickened. No ships, no fleets, just dark geometry crawling downward like veins of war. Obsidian rain wasn't about overwhelming force. It was about rewriting the laws of survival. A grid of photonic needles would pierce the atmosphere, fracturing every molecule, disintegrating resistance with a kind of cruel elegance only the Empire could afford. Liddy stood beside her mother now, pale and barely upright, but stubborn as hell. "We can't outrun it." "No," May said, placing a steady hand on her daughter's shoulder. "But maybe we don't have to." Yuri knelt nearby, assembling what looked like an anti-air cannon from the remains of 3 kitchen appliances and a fallen mech reactor. He said nothing, only nodded at May. His silence was its own kind of vow. May turned to the others. "We don't stop this by shooting at it. We stop it by breaking their expectation of what humans will do when cornered." Val raised an eyebrow. "Which is anything." LaQuinta stepped up, slinging her rifle and pulling from her bag a small, humming cube. "Got this from Glorvax's people. Said it's unstable. Didn't ask what it does." May took it carefully. "Perfect. I want it in the Empire's control channel. Now." Val frowned. "You're going to upload a mystery device into their war engine?" May smiled grimly. "No. Liddy is." Liddy blinked. "Wait, You've been hacking enemy comms with a 1992 toy held together by duct tape and sarcasm. I think you can handle this." The girl straightened slightly, nervous but proud. "Okay, but I'll need 10 minutes." "You've got 5. LaQuinta and Boomer moved to secure the perimeter, while Val created a makeshift shield wall around Liddy using scrap and old mech plating. The sky cracked open. Light speared down, not fire, not plasma, but something deeper. Geometry that cut. Shapes that shouldn't exist shimmered into being above the sand, slicing through physics itself. The Empire's voice, cold and final, echoed through the fabric of the world. This is not a war. This is a reset. May growled low in her throat. Let's overwrite their script. The first photonic blade struck the far ridge, cleaving it in half like paper. The blast radius hit Yuri's sniper perch, throwing up debris in a savage whirlwind. He didn't move, just adjusted his scope, zeroed in, and fired. The round lanced into one of the Empire's signal emitters descending from orbit. It sparked, wobbled, then detonated in a bloom of white heat. That's one, Boomer grunted. About 99 left. More light spears fell. Val was shouting coordinates. Boomer was juggling explosives and insults. LaQuinta was dueling an automated drone mid-air using a grappling hook and one bad attitude. May ran through it all, weaving between collapsing cover, issuing orders through grit and blood, guiding Liddy's hands as she rewired the alien cube into Kevin's ancient circuits. The girl's fingers flew over the cracked buttons. "We're in," Liddy said, sweat beading on her forehead. But their system's not just encrypted. It's arrogant. It thinks no one would be stupid enough to. Then be stupid, May snapped. Be wonderfully, impossibly stupid. The cube pulsed, synchronized with the grid above. One of the light beams faltered. Just for a second. A flicker. Liddy's eyes widened. "Mom, I think we can turn it." Val glanced over. "Turn what?" "The whole net. We can bounce the signal, redirect the coordinates, flip the whole thing back up." May's mouth was dry. "Back to where it came from." Liddy nodded. "To the fleet." May turned to the others. "Cover us. We're going to throw their apocalypse right back at them." Boomer's grin was feral. "Best plan I've heard since I duct-taped a toaster to a railgun." The storm intensified. The desert glowed. Liddy's Game Boy whined and flickered, held together by wire and prayer. She pushed a final button. "Now," she shouted. May slammed her palm onto the cube. For one breathless instant, everything stilled. The lines in the sky inverted. Instead of falling, the obsidian beams coiled upward. Like glass serpents suddenly reversing course, they tore through clouds and atmosphere, returning to their origin point. Val shielded Liddy as the air exploded with shock waves. In orbit, aboard the dreadnought Obsidian Apex, Dread Admiral P.H. Larks watched in horror as his own weapon bent backward. "No," he whispered. But Earth had taught the universe a lot of things. One of them was what happened when you gave the underdog your own knife. The beams struck the fleet. One by one, the capital ships bloomed into silent white blossoms. Their hulls disintegrated like dust scattered by a bitter wind. The command deck of the Apex fractured down the middle. Alarms blared, but no escape orders were given. There wasn't time. P.H. Larks reached for his console, claw trembling. But before he could transmit anything, a final screen flickered on. May Ransom, covered in blood, eyes burning. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. She just stared, held up her daughter's Game Boy, and saluted with it. Then the transmission cut. The fleet vanished into light. On the desert moon below, the silence that followed was almost holy. No wind, no weapon fire, just the crackle of cooling metal, and a horizon washed in gold. May sat down slowly beside Liddy, whose hands still trembled. "You did it," May said quietly. Liddy's voice was a whisper. "We did it." Boomer emerged from the haze, missing his left boot and laughing like a madman. "Tell me we got that on film." Val collapsed next to them, blinking upward. "I think the entire galaxy saw it." LaQuinta strode over, dragging a half-burnt Empire flag. She tossed it at May's feet. "So what now?" May looked at the sky, now calm and infinite again. "We rebuild," she said. "And we remind them." "Remind them of what?" Liddy asked. May reached out and squeezed her daughter's hand. "That 40 seconds is all a mother needs." In the days that followed, the stars whispered differently. Not in fear, Not quite. But in all, the empire had ruled with silence, with geometry, with dread. But now the galaxy remembered the day when silence fell not because they ordered it, but because one human mother, bloodied and unbroken, made the sky fall quiet.